crazy stuff went down this weekend over the Lord's weekend.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's right.
We knew because we talked about it on the show last year or so, that Sony makes MLB The Show, and it's the only video game that is officially licensed by the MLB.
Right.
And it's been exclusive to Sony for
Right.
years now. There's baseball games on Xbox and I believe on the Switch, but they're like RBI baseball, and they don't have real teams and all that kinds of stuff. So the contract with MLB came up, and Sony, as you can imagine, wanted to keep it. And so in order to renew their license to be able to develop this game, they basically had to agree to make this game multi-platform. So Sony San Diego is making this game, continuing to make it, which they have for years now, but now they also have to make it not only for PlayStation, but for Xbox and for Switch. I don't know when the Switch version is coming, but there's supposed to be a Switch version. I don't think it's coming to PC, but it definitely for those other two platforms on top of.
That would be weird if it was coming to Xbox. And
It may be, but I haven't heard one way or the other.
Sure.
So, and then if I remember right, back then the press release said that this will happen by 2022. Well, it turns out it's happening in 2021 because they had announced that MLB The Show 21 is going to be coming to Xbox. Again, we've not heard about the Switch version, but I'm sure it's on its way, or maybe it's going to be starting in 2022. I'm not sure. But then we found out come Friday, Xbox put out a press release and said that MLB The Show 21 is going to be day and date release on GamePass. Mm-hmm. And that lit the world on fire for people that are following game stuff, because essentially what is happening is a Sony, what just as of last year was a Sony first-party game. Granted, they gave us all the heads up, this is going multi-plat, so it's no longer going to be exclusive, but a Sony first-party game being produced by one of their most well-respected teams, Sony San Diego, is making a game that is going to come out as part of a subscription service on a competing platform, and on their own platform will be charging $70 for it. Which is absolutely nuts and completely insane. And I was like, what in the world is going on at Sony? Now, Sony's always been a little kind of out there. They do some crazy stuff sometimes. Sometimes the crazy stuff in a good way, sometimes the crazy stuff in a bad way. Obviously, we've been talking this last week about how they're shutting down the stores on their legacy platforms. A lot of people, we here on the podcast, didn't really take too much of an issue with that, but a lot of people have a lot of problems with that, and we went over like the reasonings that people have concern with all that kinds of stuff. But this is a horrible move to put a game on a competing platform, and we all know that it's not, but essentially it's looked at as being for free, and then charging your own platform where it's going $70. And so the more I started thinking about it, I was like, okay, they had to make a deal with MLB, and MLB made them say, we're going to have to be on other platforms. I was like, maybe there's something in that contract that required this. Like, maybe Sony's hands are tied, because I just couldn't wrap my head around any way in which Sony thought it was a good idea to make this move.
Right.
There's just no way.
Yeah. And of course not, right?
So the way that it came out is that there started being murmurings that, oh, wait, if you look and dig into all the stuff, MLB themselves are the ones actually publishing the game on Xbox platform. So on Sony's platform, Sony is publishing it as well as developing it, but they're not publishing it on MLB. So that was the first times we were like, oh, okay. So maybe there is something weird that's in the deal. And then we got confirmation from a Sony representative today that did say that decision came straight from Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. But even so Sony was painted into a corner and completely defeated and trounced this go round in terms of like the way that the optics of how this looks. Like, this is the worst possible. Like, it's not checkmate, but like if they're playing chess, like they are in a corner right now in this situation. It looks optically totally horrible. And I can't fathom how they could have agreed to some kind of contract. It's hard for me to believe that they knew that this was going to happen prior, but it's also hard for me to believe that they couldn't know. Like, how could you write up a contract and not think about like putting in a clause that this can't be a part of the Game Pass? Like,
Well, that's what was so interesting is like when we announced that it was going to be on Xbox, I automatically assumed
But
it
why?
would be on Game Pass. Only because the jump seemed so weird and the elation for it coming to Xbox was so big that I was like, that's probably going to end up on Game Pass. Now, I had that thought not thinking that was that big a deal though, actually.
Which is,
it wasn't until I dug into, when you brought it up to us, that's when I dug around and was like, okay, I could see people like really frustrated or really excited, depending on what side of the thing you're on. And it seemed like it more the taste I got was that, like you're saying, did you not see this coming, Sony? You obviously didn't want to be a part of this, a part of helping this, but like, how did you not have this be avoided?
Right.
But sometimes it felt like when I started seeing like Major League Baseball is publishing it, like now you're starting to have people come into the thing. And now it looks more like, to me, like Microsoft was sweet with the words that they said to MLB.
Sure.
To allow them to do that. And Sony's over there like, all they can say is dang it, right? It's literally out of their hands. It's not even like a move they did. It sounds like where they were driven to, not that they were actually driving this car, which is what happens when you're dealing with somebody like the NFL or Major League Baseball. Like, you get to hopefully partner with them, but like at the end of the day, as this is showing us, Sony wasn't actually driving this.
It is a bit interesting to me that you automatically thought it was going to go to Game Pass. I only say that because if I remember right, back when that press release came out, like that still wasn't really a thing. Like most new games that came to Game Pass that weren't Microsoft that might be day and date were like small indie games.
Yes. Oh, I didn't think day and date necessarily, but I just figure it just seems like that's how things
I thought you were
go.
specifically the day and date thing.
It goes to Xbox. One day it's going to be on Game Pass.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking like the day it comes out it's going to be on Game Pass for quote unquote free, and over here on PlayStation it's going to be $70.
Okay. That makes more sense.
But it is a wild story when you think about it, and you're like, huh? And then you're like, man, obviously, and I don't remember which one NBA 2K was free on first, but it's been, kind of free on both at some time. I felt like Madden, they've got EA now, and so all EA stuff is over there for free, quote unquote for free. So yeah, it wasn't like, for some reason to me, it just wasn't that big only because I thought it would happen. Day and date, yeah, sure, that sucks for Sony. Bad look. If you're not going to put it on PlayStation Now, then that's a super bad look. But it just didn't seem like that big a surprise.
Yeah, and Chris, when we were talking about it on chat, once you explained it more, I was like, oh, that makes kind of perfect sense. So the question now is, what does Sony do to make up for this? Are they going to offer this, you think, on PlayStation Plus?
They'd have to offer it this month, and those games are already out.
That's true.
Yeah,
so they can't do it next month because
So
people have just bought it.
Done.
I mean, they could maybe do it like 6 months down the road, but that's not going to...
Yeah.
The only thing that and this doesn't actually help, but the only thing really is that, if you don't have Game Pass, then people are buying the physical edition on Xbox for $70. Or if you don't have Game Pass, if you're not you buy into that, which I don't know why you would have an Xbox and not have Game Pass, but there's got to be somebody out there that's just got Xbox Live still. And yeah, exactly. But those guys are, it's still on the website to pre-order on whatever console you want to have it on, so you can pay for it if you want to. But it's definitely for it to happen quick is a weird word to say, but for it to kind of happen so quick, it felt like we were just talking about this coming to Xbox, and then Xbox Game Pass is and we're like, oh,
and
snap.
I gotta say, kind of kudos to Microsoft for kind of getting those feelers out pronto. For them,
whoever cut
for
that
them,
deal.
if you're Microsoft, you're like, we got to jump on this now because Sony doesn't necessarily realize what they've just done. So let's talk about it and talk about it on our platform. And I don't know. I would think that Sony would have some sort of something to kind of help ease people's minds about that, but it sounds like they have nothing.
Yeah, the Xbox version gonna be glitchy as a mug. There's gonna be cars falling out of the sky like in
That's right.
Cyberpunk. They'd be like, I don't know what's happening. You got it for free. Stop complaining. Best place to play it on PlayStation.
The Xbox version is just a port of bases loaded from the NES.
Yeah.
Bad News Baseball or whatever
That's
that one was.
awesome.
Where you could. Oh my gosh, yeah, that was. I was glad that because if Chris if Chris wouldn't have brought it to our attention,
nothing of it.
I wouldn't even looked
Nope.
into it.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, oh, yeah, that's weird. It's been on PlayStation, but like we've seen, and I don't know what this is. Honestly, I don't know if it's a loosening of the hands. I don't know if it's like, even this PlayStation representative is like, this decision provides a unique opportunity to further establish MLB The Show as the premier brand for baseball video games. You're like, yeah, nice try making it sound positive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like, you just wonder,
70
like,
bucks is 70
with all
bucks.
these first party things, like, it sure is. With all these first party things, like, kind of coming out on PC, another one come out on PC, and then this went to Xbox. I was like, huh. Like, they're letting a lot of cats out of the bag. You know what I mean? Where they talk about Horizon coming to PC and some other stuff. And you're like, okay, so I wonder what's really going on right now. Are they losing it, or are they establishing themselves well? And Chris, are you okay if I move on?
I have more,
Or
but
do
I
you
want
want
to
to say
give
something
Ed
else
more
about
time
that?
to say something if he's. And I don't want to. I know we need to
okay.
keep this.
Yeah.
Keep this train moving, but.
No. I wasn't saying that. I was just I'll tie it into something else later. Ed, did you have
No,
something
you guys
want to
are
add?
rocking it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
You guys may remember a while back when Game Pass started, when it first came out, and then a little while into it when they started doing it, and then they started buying. Xbox bought up several studios like Ninja Theory and a bunch of different ones,
Yep.
and I was like,
Yep.
Sony is, if they're not paying attention, like Microsoft is setting the foundation to hit it out of
Yep.
the park, hit
Yes.
the ground
100%.
running
I remember that.
this next generation starts. Now,
Yeah.
I made that statement mostly in the terms of I was expecting them to launch with like all these exclusives. So on that front, that hasn't really panned out. We're still waiting for them to bring out something
Sure.
exclusive-wise,
Right.
really. But
Yeah,
absolutely on the Game Pass front, it's been doing it. Now, there's still
Oh,
nobody has been able to prove, and they have not said, and in fact, the things that they have said publicly lead you to believe the opposite, that they are not making any money on Game Pass. And that's not a problem for them because they're such a monolithic company. And I understand that all the money they make from Windows doesn't just get funneled in. Like, I know corporations' money are siloed and you have to do things. But it's such a large corporation that they have the ability to make moves and change it. They have the ability to set up Game Pass, make it a loss leader, and wait it out. They have the money that they can do that.
uh-huh.
Sony is in
Yeah.
a lot of trouble right now, in my opinion. A lot of trouble because the game has just started. We're in the first quarter, and Sony's ahead, but Xbox has already like figured out the game plan, and they're just going to take it to them. I can see within a couple of years it totally already being flipped and Xbox starting to go away with it. And I think that Sony, I don't know what they can do. Because their business model, their proposition, is to make the games that they are known for, the quality games that cost so much money to make because they're really, really, really strong and high quality. But at the end of the day, are there enough people out there that care about the quality games over a cheap a value for a
amount. The
cheaper
price,
amount?
You're the
'Cause
quantity
I
over
don't think
quality.
Sony's. We've all known that Sony, from just a company standpoint, is not as healthy as Microsoft is, and Microsoft's a much larger company. A
Sure.
$1 trillion company. But even if you strip that away and just look at it from the gaming side, like Sony is PlayStation. Like PlayStation has to do well, or Sony doesn't do well. I mean, they tread. Microsoft, if you look at their like if you follow their Microsoft stuff and their meetings and all this kind of stuff and their press releases, it's like they don't even care about Xbox. It's like it's just kind of this thing, but yet they still fund it enough. But it's like it doesn't matter what it does. It's like we're still Microsoft. We're gonna be banging no matter what, and so they can afford to just let's do this. Play the slow game.
Dump money
Sony
into
can't
it.
play the slow game, so they put themselves in this situation where, which is what I would prefer, quite frankly. I want them to continue making The Last of Us and the God of War and all these other crazy games. Those are the games that I want. But if the hearts and minds of the gamer changes to and gets comfortable with just the subscription model, and if all of these third-party developers, because it seems like they're more and more, start going on to that, Sony can't compete with that and continue to do that what they're doing. So either they're going to have to shift gears and can turn PlayStation Now into a Game Pass alternative and possibly put their first-party games on on PlayStation Now. But to do that at this moment would be so much work for them, and we've seen that they don't do good with when there's a lot of work ahead of them. Like right now, this month, it came out that they talked about PlayStation Now, and the way PlayStation Now works is, it has all these games that are on there, but there are certain bigger titles that'll come on there, and they'll be there for a couple of months or whatever amount of time. And like we have Avengers, and we have Borderlands 3, one other game that I can't remember the name of, and that third one's going to be like on there indefinitely. But Borderlands 3 and Avengers has a timetable. But even then, PlayStation Now...
And Avengers is really short. I think the Avengers one is like a month.
I think it's...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well,
like the window is like a month or two. It's really short.
It's
There's
the shorter of the
asterisk there
three.
at the
I think
bottom.
it
It's like goes till like June 2021.
Yeah, but even bigger than that...
goes away.
Well, maybe not bigger than that, but aside with that, PlayStation Now is built to play... stream PS2 games, except for the ones that were specifically made and upgraded to be able to be downloaded on PlayStation 4. Stream PS3 games, none can be downloaded, and PS4 games, which the vast majority can be downloaded, but I don't know that every single one can. PS5 games are not part of PS Now. So that Avengers game, you don't get the upgrade. If you're playing on a PlayStation 5, you're playing the PS4 version. Like, there's so many different caveats and things around there. And we've known for all this time that PlayStation Now is not a one-to-one comparison to Game Pass. But it's just like they can't do anything right now. They're in such... Like, when I was saying earlier that they're kind of like in the corner of the chessboard right now, they don't really have a way out at the moment. And even if the Horizon comes out when it comes out in a couple, if it still comes out this year, and these other ones, like, those aren't enough. That's not, if people get in this mode of the people that can, because I understand not everybody can afford both systems or has a gaming PC, but those that can, which are a lot of the hardcore, and mostly the ones that buy stuff like day and date and all that kinds of stuff, if they're like, oh, I'm going to play all these games over here and I'm only going to go to Sony for the exclusives, Sony can't sustain with only the exclusives. The exclusives are their main draw, but they need you to want to come to that system and then also buy other games so that they can get 30% and help build up so that they can continue to sustain this business model they have. There's so many people that it said, oh, I'm so excited about Outriders. What's coming to Game Pass? I'm playing it there. And then there's so many people that are always excited about MLB The Show because it's a big seller for them, even though it was an exclusive platform. Now they're like, I've heard tons of people say, well, I'm going to play it on my Xbox because it's going to be their part of Game Pass. Yeah. Like, I think they're in a lot of trouble. And I think that Jim Ryan, because he's a numbers guy and everything, I think it starts from there, and we're going to have to see where it goes. But I'm actually very scared for them that I feel like Xbox has already won this generation. Like, I know that seems hyperbolic in a way because it's so much on the start, but it's like if you start looking at the way it's going, they've set this road and paved this out so far, and they have the funds to just ride it out. And they can ride out Sony. Like, Sony cannot continue to play hardball forever. They have to relent or shift gears or something. They can't keep doing it.
Okay, so Chris, help me out. Fill in the blank for me, and it's a long blank.
What I can.
Okay. Dear Sony, you take it from there. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you think they should do? I'm serious. Like, because the way I look at it is like, I think you're absolutely right. Now, I don't want to think that they're going to go away. I want to believe that whatever business model they have right now is the business model they've had for a while, and it seems to be working for them. They're slaughtering it on the console side of things, started this generation, won last generation, ends up that even the generation before that did better than we all thought, with the sales of the PS3. And so, you have this place where like Spider-Man is and God of War is and like you're saying, Last of Us is and some other games that are just humongous, and so you would hope that is keeping them afloat. But we do know that like Bethesda is over at Xbox now. And so all those games are going to be day and date on Game Pass and $70 on PlayStation. And so, you know, people are going to have to, especially a year or 2 years from now, start making the decision, do I want to continue to buy my games or do I want to just get them all for free? And like you're saying, the turnaround is not fast enough usually to make another Naughty Dog game in 2 years and then have, you know, something supplement in between that people are excited about. You can't just go back and forth doing Horizon, God of War, and Last of Us, right? You have to like come out with some amazing stuff, or Spider-Man, and come out with some other amazing stuff. So, from Chris's standpoint, dear Sony,
it's a really difficult situation to be in because I think the first thing that they would need to do is they need to upgrade PS Now. In some way. One, get PS5 games on there. Two, make everything downloadable. You've got to figure out how to get to PS3 games download. And especially, even from all this conversation about the competition aside, if you're removing the ability for new people as they up and come and become gamers to be able to buy old Sony console games, there needs to be a way for them to experience those games. So if PlayStation Now is it, fine. Your subscription service, that'd be a hook to get people in there. It's no big deal. But you can't just rely on streaming. Even though in theory streaming will continue to get better as bandwidth gets better, it's still not going fast enough. You have to figure that out. But even that aside, let's say you hold off on that because it's a hard nut to crack. You need to get PS5 games on there. They've already done well in the sense that they reduced the price of it. It's the same price as a year of PS Plus. So that's good. You also probably should bundle Now and PS Plus. I think that's a thing that they should be doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know on the game front side. Like I want them to continue to make the amazing single player story form games that they make. I don't want them to have to compromise on those. But if Game Pass's model is what wins out in the gaming world, they're gonna have to do that. I just don't see a world where the Game Pass model, even if every person starts doing it, that's the way that our industry or this industry goes, and that continues to give us these great, amazing games that aren't longer like games as a service or whatever. And I'm not anti-games as a service, and I don't even have an issue with them putting games on PC. Like if you want to release your games to PC, fine. Like they're doing it so far after it's released on PlayStation. Like Horizon, I think sold something like 13 million or something by its whole run on PlayStation. It sold like 1 million on PC. I mean, PlayStation is still their bread and butter for selling those games. Like, so I don't think it's a problem. And if it's a year after, again, that's not a big deal. It's the day and date thing that becomes a problem because they've already said, we're not doing that. That business model is not sustainable for the types of games we want to make. I'm inclined to believe them, knowing that it seems from all insider speculation and the little bit that Microsoft is giving us, the Game Pass makes them no money. I mean, that deal that we just talked about earlier with the whole, you got 3 years alive and you convert it all to Ultimate for $1. Like, there's so many people that have done those things. Like, yeah, they may have like 18 million people. How many of those people have paid $15 a month for that? Probably very few. I mean, and now eventually that's going to run out, and that's going to be the de facto standard. And I do think Game Pass is going to go up in price at some point. I don't think it's going to be able to stay the price that it is. But then again, Microsoft's got enough money to float that out as long as they can, you know?
It's just interesting that you take over, let's say you take over an industry like Microsoft is doing, at a loss for just forever. And is it just to say you won? Because if you make no money at it and you only feed money to it, what have you
the bragging rights?
Eventually, well, the hope, as it is with even in like with Netflix and all these other ones, the goal is that you get people in, like all these people that have paid like the $1 and have it for so long, or $1 a month for however many, or did the deal like you did originally and all that kind of stuff. Like all these people bought in. The hope is that by the time that gets to the end, you're so invested in like, oh, I enjoy this so much, you'll want to keep paying whatever that price is. And even if they raise it $2, $3, like that's not a big deal, you know? So the hope is that eventually you cross that threshold where you have more subscribers than you're taking out to create the things, and it evens out and you start making money. I do think Game Pass, just like Netflix and any of them, can get there. We just don't know how long it's going to take to get there.
Right.
But Netflix has been doing it for so long and still not
I know.
making
Yeah.
money. You know what I'm saying? But to your point, Microsoft can just
Exactly.
dump
They
the
can
money
keep
in
doing it.
there,
And
right?
I think
they could just lose
on
it.
Microsoft's side,
I just don't know
on
till
Microsoft's
what
side,
end.
they're
is
kind of in a
my
similar
only
situation
thought.
as Netflix was in the beginning, where if they can get it to where break these walls down, like, okay, Nintendo, Sony, y'all want Game Pass on your service? Fine. Where if they can get it ubiquitous, where it's on everything, they're the only game in town doing it. So they get there faster. I think that would be their ultimate strategy. Now, whether that's what they're actually working towards, who knows, but that would absolutely help them. And even if it sticks in just the Microsoft camp on PC and their Xbox systems, eventually they'll become a threshold where they're making money on it and or making more than they're outputting. I just don't know what that would be, because I don't think most of their first-party games, because there hasn't been a ton of them yet, I don't think they're hundreds of millions of dollars games so far. Now maybe Bethesda.
So let me
games.
ask you this last question, and then we got to keep it moving. But say they don't deliver the
Xbox?
games.
Okay.
You know, yes. Do you think that still they can win, even if they don't have an equal to God of War, Spider-Man, Last of Us, and Horizon Zero Dawn? Let's just choose those four real quick. Say they never come out and they just stick with doing Gears over and over, Halo over and over, Crackdown over and over. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you think that they can still win with that because the deal ends up being so good, and it really does become quantity over quality?
I think so, yeah. I don't know that it's going to go that
that's
way. I mean,
crazy.
Bethesda was a huge power move, and there are so many people that love Bethesda games and have in the past.
Play those games.
But if you, and I don't have them in front of me, but if you look at them, like a lot of their games over the last several years, they reviewed well, but they didn't really sell that well comparatively. Like Bethesda was and their kind of like ability to sell lots of games was kind of waning and going down. Now, granted, we got Starfield and the next Elder Scrolls things coming around that people are getting crazy excited about, and maybe those are going to be amazing. And then all those other studios that they just purchased. Y'all know I've been beating the drum about, like, I can't wait to play Hellblade 2 whenever it finally comes out. I mean, they've been making all these moves, and once those finally hit and all those investments, those games start dropping, it might be game over. They might be in the spot where it's like, okay, we're great. And to be clear, I'm not saying I think Sony's going to die off. I think they'll figure something out and change, or they'll relent and do something crazy, like put Game Pass on PlayStation or something. I don't know. I don't think they'll just go away, but I think they're definitely in danger of being in a really bad position. Like when they screwed up with the PlayStation 3, yes, they got that ship corrected, but like it got really bad at one point. Like it was Sony, from a financial standpoint, was in a really dire spot. If they didn't make a couple right moves, they could have gone bankrupt. Like that's how bad the PlayStation 3 was in the beginning. Like it was insanely bad for them. And I'm not saying the PlayStation 5 is on that same thing, but it's like if you continue to, nope, we're not seeing what's going with the blinders, and nope, and just keep doing this. It's
Yeah.
I
just
can't imagine that, though. I
crazy.
still think they want that win. They got the win with the 4. I think their install base is bigger. But at the same time, I honestly feel like, well, our PlayStation fans are still going to pay. If they want the games that we're providing, they're going to pay top dollar for it at this point with the new games that we're providing. I
Yeah.
still think they have that mentality.
They'd be wrong.
And I think Microsoft,
you know
what's
what I'm saying?
happening is Microsoft is really forcing people's hand. Be like, listen, if you want this if you want this and don't want to pay full price, if you don't have an Xbox, get one. If you don't have Game Pass, get it, and off you go.
like in the gaming world, and I'm not saying this is what they want, but just to use it as an analogy, Sony cannot be the Apple of the gaming world. Like that trend
They're trying to be,
work.
clearly.
That will not work ultimately. If Microsoft and Game Pass went out in terms of like everybody just falls in love with it, head over heels with Game Pass, they can't continue to do a premium and do that. Like again, Apple's worth $1 trillion too. So they can afford to do that, and they know
Right.
people are going to buy the iPhones, and they're going to pay the top dollar for Apple products and all these kinds of things. Sony can't gamble that. They can't take that gamble. They can't afford it, like literally.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I really feel like they're in a bad spot, and it's kind of. I mean, well, to be determined. I mean, kudos real quick. Kudos to Microsoft, because from just a couple years ago, people saying like they should get out of the console business. They just need to go away. To if my what I think is going to happen turns out, like fully going to turn it around.
I think you can
like,
still make the argument. They can still make the argument
True.
that they need to get out of the console business. That's not been, you know what I'm saying? That's not where the brilliance has been.